Sige. So thank you. Good afternoon, and for joining us today. For this is actually the first public program in line with Synergy of Ventures, the post-war art scene, and we thought it fitting to begin with our dear friend Pandy Aviado, um, who is a renowned figure in printmaking and has dedicated most of his artistic career as a printmaker and as a mentor to young printmakers. And of course, also quite active, especially recently, with um, annual or more than once a year exhibitions, in different galleries. Ano?
Asian or international art workshops since 2015.
Okay, sige. So, the reason why we thought of inviting Pandy first was really because of his connection, and he was a close friend and collaborator of Fernando Zóbel. And I think it's fitting that we get to know that part of that side of the partnership between Hindi, teka, introduce mo na kita.
When saying that,
Mm.
I think I'm the only one standing alive.
Who knows? Who
Who
knew him?
knows? Lahat sila patay na.
Oo
Si
nga.
Arturo, si Tessie.
Oo. Yeah. Sige. So, yun. So, we just went around the gallery, a quick view with Pandy, and he knew, of course, the collection of Ateneo Art Gallery, which was gifted by Fernando Zóbel, and he had some additional information. So it's really good to get all these information, oral history on record. And so this is an opportunity to do that. And of course, I'm sure he has many more stories that we don't know. And so thank you, Pandy, for doing this. And we give you the floor.
Please gather questions also.
And of course, he's with Diana,
I'm the daughter.
the daughter. And kamukha niya, nakita namin dun sa archival photos, kamukha niya tatay niya. Good. Oo nga. Okay, sorry.
Intro. Good afternoon. When one mentions the name Zóbel in a conversation, the first thing that comes to mind is Zóbel, Ayala, Makati, Intercon, Force Park, Manila Polo Club. So the name Zóbel, parang it resonates something that's rich, mayaman, elitist, tsaka yung glamorous. So this year, 2024, we celebrate the birth anniversary of Don Fernando. I think 100 years. He turns 100 now. And madaming mga exhibits in celebration of this event, centennial. And one of them, of this exhibit, is the one in Prado. Of course, everybody knows Prado Museum. It's along Plaza Castellana or Paseo Castellana in Madrid. And it is in Prado where you see the works of Velázquez, Hieronymus Bosch, Rembrandt, Peter Paul Rubens, El Greco. And to have an exhibit there for an artist is really it's an honor. So there have been many. I had guests come to the house asking me about Don Fernando, and like I said, most likely it's because ako na lang yung natitira from all his friends. And of course, I obliged them with trivia about Fernando. I remember April there was with Ditas and with a Spanish guy. And we were talking. Early this year, ang bumisita naman sa akin si Dr. Patrick Flores and Lisa Chiquiamco. I think this was because they were preparing a show for the Singapore Art Museum. And for the Ayala also. Well, Ateneo also has this show. Anyway, so I was telling stories, small stories, trivia about Fernando to Patrick. And as we were wrapping up the interview, Patrick looked at me and said, "What's Filipino about Fernando?" And I hesitated for a while. I said, that's strange because I found that question too parochial. I've always known Don Fernando as transnational. And to ask what's Filipino about, parang Fernando is not aiming for national artists for the Philippines. Why ask that question? It was a good thing I had this yearbook of Ateneo, which featured the Ateneo Art Gallery. So I told him, what's Filipino about Fernando Zóbel? The Ateneo Art Gallery, the Ayala Museum, and other things that I could say about Fernando. So now that question about what is Filipino about Fernando lingered for days. In fact, I asked myself, what's Filipino about me? Or what's Filipino about my art? What's Filipino about Lee Aguinaldo's art or Bobby Chobet's art? Why is it important to ask that question? Well, I could understand that Patrick is an art historian. And so, maybe it's important for him. Kasi ang art historian, linear ang kanilang narrative. It's not radial. So, I asked myself, what's Filipino about Fernando? And so, why don't we start with his beginning? He was born in Manila. And if you're an art historian, the word Filipino actually strictly means a Spaniard who grew up in the Philippines, who was born in the Philippines. This is as differentiated for the Peninsulares. He's an Insulares, no? And because the Filipinos then was called Indios. And those with Castilian DNA or RNA were referred to as Filipino. So technically, historically, he is a Filipino. And so he was born in Manila on August 27. Let's start with the first. Okay. So he was born 1924, which makes him wood rat, a Virgo. And he was the son of Enrique Zóbel. Enrique Zóbel had a second family, and when he was widowed, he got married to Ferminia Montojo. Now, Doña Ferminia was the daughter of Admiral Montojo. Admiral Montojo, if you check your history, was the one who was defeated by Dewey in the Battle of Manila Bay. Along comes Admiral Dewey. Yung mga barko nila were all made of steel, facing the Spanish Navy, all made of wood. So, nagpaputok si Dewey. Bang! That's it. Goodbye, surrender. And so Monto said, come in. Let's change it into Dewey Boulevard. Sabi, okay, Dewey Boulevard na to. And Dewey said, okay, let's sign a treaty. I think it's called the Treaty of Paris. They paid, I don't know how many millions, and that was the beginning of the American period. In 1933, Fernando and his family traveled to Europe. So can we see? Yeah. Okay. Do we have the laser pointer somewhere? Okay. This is the family of, this is Don Enrique, and that's Fernando over there. I think this is Mercedes, and that's Macmeeking. I'm not sure if that's Macmeeking or, but there's Fernando. And the house, next slide please. This house was located in the corner of Eran Street and Dewey Boulevard. And this was the house where Fernando grew up. This is an architecture by the son of Juan Luna, Andres Luna de San Pedro. It's Art Deco style of architecture. This eventually became a bank, I think Asian Bank. Then, sometime in the early 1990s, it was demolished. Okay. Next. In 1936, the family returned to the Philippines, and in 1941, Fernando finished a degree sa University of Santo Tomas. This was during the Japanese occupation. In 1942, he contracted something, and there was something wrong with his back, so he was bedridden. And it's something weird, because most of the artists, well, including Ignatius of Loyola, had parang spiritual awakening while they were sick. And this happened also to a lot of people. I think Tapies, painter, they underwent time where they got sick and they had to stay in bed, and because they had nothing to do, they started, their mind started wandering. And then all of a sudden they have this enlightenment, and all of a sudden they knew what was going to happen in the next few years of their lives. So here's a trivia. I have an aunt. We call her grand aunt actually, Lola Trining Aviado Whale, who was a nurse, and she took care of the Zóbels, Jaime Zóbel, the kids of Jaime Zóbel. And according to her, she took care of Fernando while he was sick. And here's something surprising. She told me, I encouraged Fernando to paint while he was sick. Of course. I said, yeah, sure. Well, it was true, you know. But Fernando already had talent, of course. And in 1945, that was right after the war. I think that was right after the first atomic bomb. Fernando became familiar with the bohemian scene of Manila, and he had friends who were in the there were poets, painters, etc. So what's that? Yeah, he went to Harvard in the late 1940s, 46, 47, and he started studying in Harvard, and this was one of the murals he did in one of those bars. You know, he was a young guy and he was having a good time, so he went to bars and started painting next. And he got to know George Gross, who was a German painter, I think. And he was influenced by George Gross, as you can see in the middle, that one. This was done in 1950. And then I think over there is a catalog. So he was a student of philosophy and letters in 1946, and in 1949 he graduated from Harvard, and he was a magna cum laude student. And one of the works or thesis was the work of the Spanish Federico Garcia Lorca. And then he started working as a researcher in the Harvard University Library. And it was here in New England that he started to paint. He had meetings with other painters from the Boston area. Hyman Bloom, I think. And he was part of the Boston School of Art. He was also very much impressed with the works of the Expressionists, Georges Rouault, Picasso, and the Byzantine mosaic art. And Fernando experimented with all kinds of techniques, including printmaking, aquatint, engraving, and serigraphy. And then he joined the group exhibition sometime in 1951 in Boston. And by 1952, he moved back to Manila, and he worked for the Ayala Corporation. In the early 50s, he joined a group affiliated with the Philippine Art Gallery. Yeah, that was, this was Zóbel's essays on Lorca. And, sige pa. This was his first exhibit at the PAG. As you can see, the type, the fonts are very 50s dated. So he joined a young artist affiliated with Philippine Art Gallery, meaning sina Lydia Argilla, and he had a show at the Philippine Art Gallery in 1952, and it was showing an influence, Boston influence, and maybe a bit of Matisse there, a bit of Picasso, and his work was characterized by strong lines and simple composition. In 1953, he participated in this second Spanish-American Biennale. His first attempts at abstraction took place, but he quickly abandoned it. Here is a kind of a message about Filipino artistic expression. So you can see that from that time, he was beginning to be a Filipino painter. He was mixing with the Indios, and he was describing. He was trying to find a philosophy behind what's Filipino in a painting. And then, sometime in 1954, he published a Zóbel sketchbook. I think you have that small sketchbook. Yan, that. Liit. Anyway. Most of you know that sketchbook. It was what Fernando would always carry, and something that I learned from him. I always carry a sketchbook. And the sketchbook had introductions by Arturo Luz and Emilio Aguilar Cruz. And then he had a second one-man show, and this was held in the Contemporary Art Gallery, owned by Manuel Rodriguez, the soon to become the father of printmaking. And then after his show in 1954, he already showed that he was part of the Philippine art scene. Um, he published several books. He made this manifesto about Philippine art. He even studied and made a study about the Filipino color. What was it that made a painting Filipino? And during that time, he was talking about the paintings made by H.R. Ocampo, Bolton Francisco, Cesar Legaspi, and he came up with this thing about the Filipino color, which is actually describing what the colors of the plants were. Yung chlorophyll, meaning violet, green, orange, ochre, sienna. And when I came across that, I said, that's quite true. You know, he was able to figure that out. The nice thing about Fernando was that he was seeing the big picture, while the Filipino painters were lost in the details. They probably didn't know what they were doing, but they were doing it. It was Fernando who saw what was happening in the big picture of Filipino painters then. So, in 1954 and 55, he traveled to the United States. I think he ended up first in Seattle, just like Idades. And then, by land, he traveled to the East Coast. And it was there that he touched base with his cousin, Alfonso Osorio. And it was the first time he saw the works of Mark Rothko, Jackson Pollock, de Kooning, Franz Klein. And it was also the time he was introduced to photography. And this helped him a lot. And then in the mid-50s, in about 1955, he discovered a new art movement in Madrid. And this was the El Paso group. The El Paso group. He had friendship, yeah. Can we see the other slide? Yeah. This was another book by Fernando. When he was on his Filipino mindset, he made a research on religious images, and it was in this book that I made my woodcuts. Some of the images here, I said, I'll make a woodcut out of this. And it was also this period that he was doing this Carroza series, no? This was a very popular book then. So, as you can see, Fernando was already emerged in the Filipino visual language then. And when he discovered the El Paso group, this was composed of Gerardo Rueda, Luis Feito, Manolo Millares, Antonio Saura, Manolo Millares. I don't know if you know, he was the idol of Mars Galang. His paintings were made of burlap, just like Alberto Buri. And Feito, idol naman ni Yongoren. So, when Fernando came back here from Spain, he brought with him a small collection of painters from this El Paso group. He had it at the Ateneo Art Gallery. Can we go to the Ateneo Art Gallery? Sorry. Some of the pictures were I saw down there. So when Fernando started teaching, having a lecture at the Ateneo Graduate School at Padre Faura, he was teaching a course that would shape or reshape the Filipino society. He was a visionary, and he wanted to convince the elite that there's a new thing happening. Remember, this was the 1950s. And the 1950s, the Philippines was trying to keep up because of the of war. They were trying to rebuild the Philippine society. As you very well know, painting, art, culture, this is nation building. This is part of nation building. We make a nation great because of our artists. Art makes a nation, a society great. And Fernando knew this, and what he did was to, well, I'll use the word indoctrinate, to educate the elite in the Philippines to accept modern art. And he had this lecture at the graduate school. Some of the students there were Eric Torres, Yoni Benessa, Lindy Loxin, Mike Parsons, and many others. Fernando placed the seed so that our society will be open for the contemporary painting that was going on then. And he was also encouraging people to use the modern interior, so that interior decorators were they were encouraged to use the new setup. And the Ateneo Art Gallery then was macrocosm of what contemporary interior would be in that modern times, quote unquote. So here we have the Ateneo Art Gallery. I think I was a sophomore then. And Eric Torres was the curator then, a diehard Fernando Zóbel fan. And every break we would sneak in the Bellarmine Hall because it was aircon, and we all had this thing, That's an abaca rug. And some of these paintings, I think you see down below in the exhibit. And next slide. Let's go to the first slide pala. when you enter the art gallery, the first thing you would see is a painting by Manuel Rodriguez. Do you have that in that? No. I don't know where that went. Anyway, and then you go inside there. I think that was a Chabet, and then Zóbel, and then an H.R. Ocampo in the middle, and then on the other side, at the back of the sofa, you have Arturo Luz. So this was a setup in the 1960s, and this described what a contemporary interior would be. Parang ano siya, yung this was how a modern interior would look like. Next. Yeah. Here we have the Luz. Ito ba? Ito. This is Renato Santos, si Butch Santos. Ito naman si the one who owns National Bookstore. Ramos. Twins sila. Me twins to. Me twins to. The twin. Ito si Butch, who is now an art collector. And this was during the yung break time sa Ateneo. Yeah. Sorry. So that was the interior of the Ateneo Art Gallery. On the other side was the was the stock room. I have no picture, but it was a stock room where they placed all the artworks, and see Eric Torres also painted, and he would place his paintings there. Ang painting ni Eric was mga they were exclamation points. And then somebody saw it and said, I think it was Tony Manood who said, "That's a vulva. That's not an exclamation point." and then Eric took it down. So that was the end of Eric Torres' painting career, I suppose. Anyway, we would spend, along with the Ateneo Art Club, we would spend some time there. And we would listen to the record of Miles Davis. It was called Sketches of Spain. And I think I have it here somewhere. And one of the pieces there was called the Saeta. And it was about during the Holy Week, there was a band that would play and then there would be a lady in a window in an alcove who would sing like an Arabian, and he would go and it was a beholding experience, and every year they would do that in Sevilla during Holy Week. And this was one of the things that Fernando would listen to while he was painting. When I met Fernando and he invited me to his studio, the first thing I noticed was the smell of turpentine, refined turpentine. I have visited Ayala Museum and other museums that try to replicate the studio of Fernando. I remember what's the name of your guy? Esguerra ba? Kenneth, yeah. He made his own studio, what he thought Fernando's studio was. And it was a pretty good attempt, although I'm sure he never been there and he doesn't know Fernando. But it was pretty good, except that wala yung amoy ng turpentine. Because when you go in his studio, right away you would smell the sweet odor of turpentine. Also, he had aligned in his studio a series of canvases that was slashed. I think it was probably to remind him that it was a hard thing to do. I mean, to paint something that you don't know, but you feel like you have to paint it, and then ending up horribly, you know. So he would slash it. Anyway, he had a syringe. Yung syringe niya, yung herringuilla. It was made of glass, and it was filled with black paint. And he would go like that. It was like he was fencing with the canvas, and every stroke was like a golpe, un golpe. Anyway, I remember we were a group of young painters who came to see him, and he showed us his place in Forest Park. I think it was Harvard Road. And then when we were about to go, he said to one of the guys, "Hey, you got fare?" He was picking his wallet and said, "You got fare?" Yeah. Anyway, a funny thing about Fernando also is that he had what you call the a tic, nervous tic. Yeah. There's a scientific term for that. Tourette's syndrome. Yeah. And probably it's because of the after effect of his back. So during his lectures, he would go like that. He would go like that when he was painting. And it showed in his paintings also, you know, his nervous tic. Anyway, while we were going and talking to him in his studio, he would show his collection of books, and once I saw in one of his section a collection of Shunga art, and he was quite embarrassed about it. And he said, Shunga is the erotic Japanese prints. Anyway, so he called my attention to some of his other collection, and he said, "You like that? So, yeah, have it." And he was a very generous guy. Anyway, we were in this painting, yung karosa, was the effect of his study in the religious images in the Philippines. And he had experimented then with the new medium called casein. Casein is like acrylic. It's made of plastic. And I think it was already in 1959, after his stint with the Ateneo Art Gallery, he donated his collection to the Ateneo Art Gallery. And it was the most comprehensive collection then of contemporary Filipino painters. He also donated the collection of prints. The nice thing about the collection of the prints was that it was prints from the early days and prints of masters like Rembrandt, Picasso, Rouault, and it was a whole course in printmaking. There is no other collection that I've seen that goes up and down the entire history of printmaking. This included Baskin, Benchan, Frasconi, and then to the works of Rodriguez and Zenon Rivera and Florencio Concepcion, then the Japanese. So it was the most comprehensive collection I've seen. So in the painting and print and books alone, it was a priceless collection that someone has donated to an institution. And it reminded me of what the Jesuits message to their students: to give and not to count the cost, to be a man for others. And for me, this act made him the most important artist, Filipino artist during that time. And for me, that would be my answer to Patrick's question: what is Filipino about Fernando? I also recall that when Juan Luna and Hidalgo won an international prize in Paris, I think, and we were celebrating, Rizal said, "Genius knows no country." And that's why transnational artists like Fernando, you cannot peg him down to being an American or Castilla or Filipino. He is more than that. He is an international figure in the art world. Now, I met him in a lecture in the Ateneo Art Gallery, and I presented myself. Hey, Don Fernando, I'm a student of Manuel Rodriguez, and I know something about prints. And then he said, oh yeah, I have a print here by Bernard Childs. You know how this was done? I said, yeah. He printed that and then placed a roller on top. So he said, so you know your craft, huh? Maybe you can help a friend of mine, Bobby Chabet, because he made an etching, and it seems that he does not feel good about the things that the proof that he has. So Fernando introduced me to Bobby Chabet, and then Bobby Chabet introduced me to Lee Aguinaldo. It was also Don Fernando who introduced me to Mars Galang. Mars Galang had a show, at the AAP Gallery, which was located at the UNESCO building, corner of Iran and Taft Avenue. And through Mars, I met Ben Cab, Yonggoren, Jimmy, Jaime de Guzman, Ben Maramag, and so forth. I have invited them to my print workshop in my place in Philam, and I feel that I was the one who introduced Ben to Lee, Bobby to Mars Galang, Joy Dairit, and Ray Albano was also there. He used to come to my workshop every Sunday. He would do his prints there. And that's how he met Bobby Chabet. So we all did prints in my workshop. And in 1967, I had a show at the Luz Gallery. And Fernando bought my Autoretrato. It was a second prize at the AAP print competition. First prize was Samonte. Anyway, that print, I think, is in the gallery. Okay. So, yan. Here's a letter that Fernando wrote me, and I was wondering if I could read it. It said, Dear Pandy, here is your letter for Joaquin Munoz. This was dated April 17, 1967. Dear Pandy, here is your letter for Joaquin Munoz. Joaquin Munoz was the cultural attaché. I don't believe I have ever written a more impressive recommendation. Oddly enough, I mean every word of it. You are a born artist, if I have ever seen one. An artist's life is a strange one. Nature has equipped you with that extraordinary energy and vision required to achieve the ups, in quotation, and with the necessary defense to absorb and use the downs, in quotation. God distribute gifts like yours with parsimony. It will be your duty, and I trust your joy and pleasure to use them. I hope that you will receive your beca, the scholarship. If you don't, do not be discouraged. Merely apply again. You will get it sooner or later. I repeat my offer to pay your passage both ways. It will be a pleasure. Spring is here. The poppies are out. The last almond blossoms are falling. The storks fly back from their winter homes in Africa. Our Castilian desert seems to be exploding into a green, exuberant kind of life. There is great painting going on here. We await your arrival. Then, un fuerte abrazo de tu amigo, Zóbel. So, that was the letter I received. I didn't get the scholarship that year because, of something. I went to teach at the Ateneo High School along with Pagsanghan and Brenda Fajardo. And some of my students were quite famous. Apo Hiking Society, sina Gabi Lopez. And then my father died. So, it was quite prophetic what he said, that if I don't get it, try again, I'll get it sooner or later. So my father died, and he was the lawyer of the Bank of the Philippine Islands. He died in the main office in Plaza Cervantes then. And I was given quite a handsome parang pera. Yung, what do you call that? Inheritance. So I had money, and I was ready to go to Europe the following year, 1969. Okay, can we go to, yan, okay. No, first, before that. Yan. I prepared myself to travel to Europe. It was the first time I was traveling. I was 25. And I came across this book by James Missioner. And it was in one of this chapter that he was describing how it was to be with Don Fernando, traveling from Madrid, going to Cuenca. And this erudite person explaining the landscape of the Castilian landscape on the way to Cuenca. It was about 3 hours from Madrid. And I was quite young, and I didn't know, I didn't really appreciate what it was to be with Don Fernando explaining. I know that people like Ambeto Campo or some other writers would be just thrilled to have that occasion, to have Don Fernando explaining to them about the Castilian landscape. So there's Don Fernando in the front. This was he had the car, yung Mercedes Benz. I was seated at the back, and he was Don Fernando, in his most erudite thing, he was explaining what happened here, what happened there. And then finally, we got to Cuenca. Yeah. And the first artist we met in the along the road was Manolo Millares. Manolo Millares, as I've mentioned, was one of the idols of Mars Galang. And eventually, I would be printing his etchings. So then we got to meet Gustavo Torner and other artists there. And this was, next, yeah. That's me with a Gitano, gypsy in Cuenca, overlooking the Casas Colgantes. Next. And that's me along that view of the Huecar River. Ito ba? Ito. Yeah. Next slide. Meron ba bang slide dyan? There was a print workshop there, and he told me you can use the facilities here, and then just make sure that you tidy up the print workshop. This is an engraving I made of the interior of Casas Colgadas with Fernando's painting, a saeta in the middle. This is done by Burin engraving. And then on the other side, I think it's a painting by Feito, Luis Feito. Next. This is an etching I made. It was commissioned an edition of about 50, I think. Fernando saw me sketching and said, make me an etching of this. So I made it. It's aquatint and soft ground etching. Next. This is one of the galleries there. It's called Sala Onda. It's a silent H, so it's Onda, meaning wave. It's not the Onda. Yeah, somebody, what's that? Motorcycle shop? No. Anyway, it was also in Cuenca that I had the show with Ben Cab. Ito ba yun? Ito si Ben. May buhok pa. Looking like Peter Fonda. And that's me. And that's Rocio. Rocio yung nanay ni Inigo and Dedes. Yung tito nila si Fernando. Yung papa nila, si Enrique, was from the first family of Enrique, the elder Enrique. And pinsan din niya si Jaime. Si Jaime was also from the other family. I think Jacobo Zóbel yung. Anyway, Rocio had an apartment near Fernando, and one summer I stayed there because during summer, about siguro July, August, September, July, August, everything closes down in Madrid. Talagang nobody's there. because that's how it is in summer. Everybody, everything's closed. Hindi lang yon. There was also the siesta. So you have breakfast at about noon, and then I go to school, and then I come back around 2. 2 to 5 is siesta time. Nobody goes out, everybody sleeps. This was a time of yung Franco, the dictator. Anyway, so you start working again at 5, and then you finish about 9, and then you have supper at 10. That's early already. And then it goes on. So one summer I decided to stay in Cuenca. And I got to know the artists there, people who work with Fernando. I even befriended one of the painters who made the edition for Fernando, yung the one what he calls plantigraph. Anyway, I've been to Cuenca many times, and then this particular summer I stayed longer, about 2 months. And it so happens that there was a fiesta. Sige pa. Yan. Yan. This was the road leading to the museum. The museum is, can I have this one? This is the entrance of the museum. This one goes down. And yung landscape nito, yung what I showed previously. This is, somewhere here is the Plaza Mayor, where the church is, the cathedral. And then you go down here, and that's the entrance to the museum. And over here, somewhere here, is the Maison Casas Colgadas. Anyway, there was this feast. And instead of bulls, they had cows that would roam around, and people would go around taunting it. And so, yeah. Okay, Fernando's apartment is somewhere here. Mine was somewhere here. And we had the Plaza Mayor as our scene from outside. This is a modern photo. Yeah, modern photo na. Yung araw wala pa yan, wala pa yung mga yan. Yeah. So that's the cathedral, that's the way going down to the museum. And somewhere here was a kind of a outdoor bar. And you would always see painters hanging around there. And since I was there, I would look and see kung may mga tao na dyan. And then I would go down and say, hey. And once Arturo Luz came and visited us, and Fernando said, hey, come down and let's have a drink with the Conquenses. So I was there. And then si Bonnie, one of the painters, Bonifacio Alfonso, said to Arturo, hey, Arturo, what happened to the artworks that we consigned there? How come we never got money? So Fernando said, no, let me pay you. So he pays them. And then one of them suggested, why don't we go and see Antonio Saura? Antonio Saura was the most senior of the painters living there. He was one of those who initiated this movement, El Paso, very famous. He was the brother of Carlos Saura, a movie director. Anyway, sabi ni Fernando, excuse na lang ako. And it was in Cuenca that I noticed Fernando was not the typical Spanish painter who would just hang around and mix with the other painters. He was how should I put it? He didn't socialize too much. And because of this, the other Spanish painters took pot shots at him. That usually happens because they probably envy him because he's rich, because he was able to put up that collection. And not only that, he placed himself in that museum because he owned the collection, and it was very weird because parang siya na yung may-ari kasi nilagay niya yung painting niya ron. He's one of them when actually he's not. So it's a very tricky thing about, you're rich, you have money, and then you put your paintings there. So, and then they also say, he's this, he's that. He paints thinly, not like us, thick, and so forth and so on. So, Antonio Saura was the opposite. He was rough. He would curse. Unlike Fernando, you would never hear him say the C word. He would always perfect gentleman. Even his Spanish was, because usually Spaniards would say, ta, 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 ta. And it's very colorful when they say things, because they say things like the organ of a woman, or or I shit on this thing or that. But that's part of being Spanish. But Fernando was not like that. He was a gentleman. He was the primer orden, the first. He was un caballero, the primer orden. Anyway, so I showed Arturo. I introduced him to Antonio Saura, and Arturo's Spanish was impeccable, so he was able to relate with Antonio, and they got along well. And Arturo noticed that Antonio Saura was crazy about erotic art, so they got along well. Anyway, after Arturo left, and there was this fiesta in Cuenca where they had the cows running around. Here's a photo of that event. People would be wearing red. In Pamplona, it was the bulls that they let go, and it reminded me of that. The Sun Also Rises, I think it was the film with Tyrone Power and Ava Gardner. And I had a friend who was also a painter, si Munir. And Munir was sketching. I was drinking. I said, childhood painting. And then, I don't know whose great idea was it. Hey, let's all go down and join the crowd. And I said, yeah, sure. So we went down and it was really scary. Everybody was running around. And eventually I found myself in that road, yung going to the museum. No, that. And the cow was coming here, and I was here. And one of the cows went like that, boom, hit me here. I made a somersault. I ended up there in the museum. And good thing they had a rope. You go like that to the cow so it won't hit me anymore. Then all of a sudden, people were saying, torero, torero, torero. And I was really feeling so macho, you know. And then my friend said, he saw me walking in the Plaza Mayor and said, hey man, you're white. Namutla. Anyway, that evening I went to the only disco there, and they were saying, torero, torero, torero. And that was what I did during that summer. And it was really fun. Anyway, here is a group. Again. That's Alfonso Bonifacio. Ito si Roda Rector, patay na yan. Si Flora Mauleon. Patay na si Roda. Last year. Si Roda. Si Jojo Banaag, patay na rin yan. This is Muro, Luis Muro. He's the owner of the gallery. That's me. That's Rocio. That's Ben Cab. That's Munir. And that's somebody I forgot. Si Flora Molion, Jojo Banag, paintings ni Ben. Flora Molion was, ito, si Flora. Ando rin yan, yung printmaker. Kasabay din na Ojeng Ocano. But she was my classmate sa Bellas Artes. At si Velasco ata to, I remember him. Eto, si Munir is now para siyang special artist of Spain. He was given an award, you know, really strange. But anyway. In 1972, Fernando was made the adopted son of Cuenca. Ito si Roda. Ito si Recio, Luis Muro, myself, si Bonifacio, Alfonso, Ben Cab, Jojo Barag, ito si Munir. That was our show in Cuenca. Anyway, here's Fernando painting one of his saetas and using his syringe, go like that. Yan. And here is the train station named after Fernando Zóbel. So he did this thing when he was in the Philippines. He gave all this Ayala Museum and the Ateneo Art Gallery. And when he was in Spain, eto naman, he contributed this collection. So, more or less, that's the. I started working in Spain in Grupo Quince. Nandiyan ba yung aking Grupo Quince? Eto, yeah. This is the catalog of the Grupo Quince. Isa pang pagano. Eto. Ito yung logo ng Grupo Quince. This was in 2013. This was a kind of a book about the. This was edition house. This is where I editioned works of Millares, Eusebio Sempere, Lucio Muñoz, Amadeo Gabino, Lucio Muñoz. Who else? There were several others. And then the next slide. So, yan. It's all in Spanish. Anyway, these are the people who, yeah. Can you go back there? Yeah, yan. So, estampador, ayan, dito, ayan. I think it was 1973, yan. So these are the people, the one who prints, yeah. Estampar is to print. And then this is Dimitri Papageorgiou was there, Antonio Lorenzo, and ayan, sina Rosa Biadu, I printed some of her stuff. And then the prints of silkscreen by Abel Martin. Anyway, the location of that place was on the same street as where Don Fernando was staying, Calle Fortuny. And one day he dropped by and said, "Hey, I didn't know you were working here." So saw my stuff and said, "Great." I also recall he was hospitalized, and I went to see him in the hospital. And his hospital, he had a bed, and then he had an easel, he had one painting, he had an orchid, and he was happy to see me, and we talked for a while, and then the nurse came and said, "Hey, it's time to go." So then after an encouragement from Antonio Lorenzo, who was my guru in printmaking, he encouraged me to go to Paris to further my studies in printmaking. And then something happened. Elena Benitez came to see me in Paris and said, "Hey, why don't you come back? You've been gone for 6 years. We need you. Come back." So I came back and I went to teach at the University of the Philippines. I took over the class of Rod Paras Perez. And then I met Mike Parsons, and we started our printmaking workshop there. For about 12 years, I stayed in Baguio. This was before the advent of BenCab. BenCab came around mga 1985. And then he went to see me in Baguio, and then we stayed and watched the People's Revolution happening in 1986. And then I heard that Fernando left us, and that was it. 1984. 1984, yeah. So that was before the 86 revolution, yeah. Anyway, more or less, that's what I wanted to talk about. And then, I wanted to show you the evolution of Fernando's signature, yeah. So he started, I think, with he went like that. And then it became like this. And then it became a Greek, yung theta. Z is theta. And Omicron. Then beta. Then epsilon. Then lambda. Fernando was very much affected by the book Alan Watts. One of the The Way of the Zen. So in Zen there is the Enso. Enso is the beginning and the end. It's also the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is the snake eating its tail. It's a symbol, it's a metaphor of eternity or an orbit. So we have the theta, and then the Zóbel, the Enso, the world wherein there was Spain, and there was Philippines, and then what crossed it between the two continents. It is a metaphor of what has happened to Fernando. Thank you very much. Question.
You mentioned yung nasa Manila pa, there were other young artists who would visit Fernando.
Yeah.
So can you mention the names?
Mars Galang, of course. Siya yung sinabihan ng hey, you got fare? Bubunus ka, you got fare? Of course. Pero sanay si Fernando ng ganun kasi may mga drivers siya. And he has, people would come and say, hey, pahingi naman. So akala niya siguro si Mars ganun din. Hey, got fare? Kinikwento ni Mars yun he could not forget that. And then of course, sina Hoya, Bobby Chabet, of course. And but when David Medalla was starting, he was in that area of the Malate area, Ermita, actually. There is a lot, an empty lot doon sa, what was that? Calao TM Calao. TM Calao, andito yung National Library. And then there was an empty lot. And that was where David was. And he had a shanty and he called it Cave de Angelique. And, David would go there and well, the art scene then was Ermita area, Ermita Malate. Luz Gallery there, kasi andun yung Lindy Lock scene, and then that apartment, Ramona apartment. And then AAP, National Museum. Yung National Museum, that's where the AAP was. And then PAG, then Simang Maning, along Mabuhay Hotel sa Mabini. And then several Gaiety movie house was there. And then there was the Ronnie's flower shop. Ang dami dun sa ano. And then, of course, the Mabini artists were all there. So that was the scene. And that's, I suppose, that's where Fernando also grew up. Along with, sina Alcuaz, dun din sila. And, well, that was the art scene then. Yeah, trivia. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just to clarify the dates, you mentioned when he was hospitalized, you visited him. That was in 72 or 73?
I think that was in 72.
72, okay.
Kasi I was still studying at the Academia de San Fernando. Because I started 69, 70, 70, 71. So, mga 71, ganun.
Okay, thank you. Because that was the time also, in line with my research, that he was supposed to have hosted the assistant keeper of the Department of Prints from the British Museum
I
to
see.
visit him in Cuenca, but he delayed it because he had undergone the two
Yeah.
operations, I think twice, but
Right,
during
right,
that time.
right.
So, glad.
But,
Thank you.
Visiting him in his room, it looks like a studio because, he had yung the caballete, what do you call that, the artist, easel. He had a painting there. Then he had an orchid. Then he had all his books. So, this guy's got class.
Kahit sa hospital.
What I forgot to say was that he was a beautiful soul. I don't think anybody has said that before. They always say, oh, he's a gentleman, he's this, he's that. But for me, he was a beautiful soul. He was really an extraordinary person. Aside from being, generous, etc. But when you begin to talk to him, there was something about him that makes you feel good. Of course, those from afar, you would say, ay, mayabang yan, mayaman yan, or things like that. But when you begin to talk to him, he is a beautiful soul. Yeah.
I want to share. I ended up with 2 books
With his
that
annotations,
actually originated from him.
were there yung
Yes.
marginal notes?
One
Because
is from it ended up in Lee Aguinaldo's collection, and
You know,
Sino na yung
it's his
partner
book.
ni Sorry,
When
sorry.
he-
Melba
when-
Gift gave it to me.
Yeah.
Yun. Pero una Zobel, and then he gave it to Bobby Chabet, and then Bobby Chabet ended up giving it to Lee Aguinaldo, I think. So the
Yeah.
title is Hidden,
Yeah.
The Hidden Order of Art by Anton Ehrenswig. Tapos ito, this is more recent. Was actually, this is given to the museum. I got hold of it was given to me by Tony Twig when I saw him a few months ago
Yeah.
in Australia. So I'm quite curious about this because it's entitled Quevedo. So you probably have encountered this. This is a writer who's was very popular during the Baroque period, which I think connects to his interest in Baroque art. No, so there's signature of Fernando, but it ended up with Margot Trapaga, who was a friend of Fernando. I came across her name, and another male Trapaga
Yeah.
when I was doing the Lee Aguinaldo research. And then Margot Trapaga, who eventually migrated to Australia, I think. And that's how Tony Twig met her. And she gave it to Tony. And then Tony thought
Then
it
ended
would
up
be
here.
best to be part of the
Yeah.
Ateneo Art Gallery
Yeah.
collection. So, yun.
It's like his signature. Parang yung
Oo
answer.
nga, umiikot. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it came. You know, if a book came from Fernando, because he would always have his marginal notes. Sasabihin niya, he would correct some of them. He would say, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And he had a particular way of penmanship. Yung orthography niya had something special. Anyway. Oo, lagi. When he was given this award sa Cuenca, the news traveled that he has joined the Brotherhood. It's a special brotherhood that would come out every Holy Week, parang wearing this and they said that we know it was Fernando because he was going like that.
And
Yeah.
during his funeral, no, diba, they were part of the. Parang I remember seeing a photograph
Yeah.
of his funeral, and there was a row of
Oo, yung
men
mga
wearing
brother,
that.
parang Spanish Inquisition or something like that. Or
There's
Ku
one-
Klux Klan.
There's one question pala that I want to ask you. I hope you can answer. What was the connection between Fernando and Ateneo? How did he ended up
That's what
teaching?
yeah.
Yun muna. Because the teaching came before.
I think
the
he
donation.
befriended Fritz Araneta, Father Fritz.
From the ano to,
From the
Forbes Park
Forbes,
community.
And then, like I said, he had a vision of what the modern Filipino would be like. And he was able to design what the Filipino interior would look like. And that's why I keep on emphasizing that he was responsible in making our nation great at that time. Because it's the artist, it's art that helps in making a nation great. All the other nations like Japan or ang America, during the war, all of the expat went to New York, and that's they created the movement, the abstract expressionist movement. with the yung backing of CIA, because they wanted a dominant art scene in America. That's why it's very important that the artists participate in nation building. That's why dito rin, I think it's the artist who makes this place a better place. What makes a nation great is the artist. And that's why Fernando was at the forefront of nation building during that time, post-war. And I don't know what else is Filipino, what you can call a guy Filipino. Here is the guy helping this nation stand up and be recognized through the arts. And he helped in nation building. Same as the Zóbels, how they build up the Makati, di ba? That's why, if I get to see Patrick again, hey Patrick, this is what makes him, parang, he's making it appear that Zóbel is gunning for the national artist. Hindi. He's transnational. He's above all this. Di ba? Zóbel could be American or Spanish or Filipino. Who cares? Di ba? Genius knows no country. Yun.
So any more comments or questions?
Okay, go ahead.
Sir Pandy. So we know that Zóbel studied Philippine religious imagery, and I think it was also in the early 50s that I think it was Alfredo Rosas who had commented that Zóbel was one of the few artists who was a devout Catholic. But I wonder if this ever became apparent to anyone else he was speaking to, because we know that he's tackled religious themes in his early works, but you don't find that overtly in his body of work later on. So I don't know if you felt that perhaps he shifted away from something that was also perhaps divisive in some cases, or if perhaps it was more a private devotion on the part of the artist.
It could be a private devotion. It's the same question as, is he Filipino or is he religious? Is this artist religious or is he spiritual? I think it's everything. The thing is that he is larger than life. What we are doing is like describing an elephant. We are all the blind guys trying to describe it. And we describe it because we could only feel portion. We do not see the bigger than life Zóbel. So what we do is just describing as far as we are concerned, but that's not the whole picture. Fernando's everything, and he's larger than life. I tell you.
I guess it's also there's strong spirituality in his works. No, especially the ones on exhibit in Ayala Museum, yung sa exhibit
He
niyo.
found Zen.
Yeah.
The Zen of painting. He found this yung kanyang purpose in painting. The sound of one hand clapping.
Okay. I was thinking about your question din eh. Kasi, like my dad, also has a series of a period na religious art. And I was thinking about your question and I was thinking about how to answer it in the future. If someone were to ask me if my father is religious or spiritual. that question, the very same question, naisip ko na, artists kasi, they don't really think like, oh, I'm religious, I'm gonna make a religious painting. Parang hindi sila ganun mag-isip eh. They're just like emotional. Just like, bam, just like working. And then later, do we think, oh, that's religious or that's, then nakikita natin yung mga topics that they go through. But during that moment, they're not thinking what they are. They're not defined. They're above definition, diba? And then it's up to us na lang to think. Were they, what did they think? But it's so impossible to know. Because maybe they were religious at that moment, at that second, and then not after that second. It's very ephemeral. So yun, parang yes and no yung sagot doon.
Then with a large brush, he would go like that. Voila.
I see. Pandy, can you describe yung kanina, you didn't mention it during the actual presentation about the syringe being dipped in a
Yeah.
water.
Of course, it's made of glass yung kanya. And like I was saying a while ago, when he went to America and he went to a store and he was buying a syringe. Let's see your arm. Checking if it was shooting.
Yeah.
And he said he was embarrassed. He would go like that. Embarrassed.
No, but yung water bowl,
Di pagpasok mo doon sa kanyang smell of turpentine, and then there's a big bowl ng ganyan of water. Andun yung syringe, andun yung oil paint, the black. And he kept it in that water kasi so that it won't dry up. So that he could easily take it and then paint it and then put it back. That's how you keep the oil from drying.
I wonder in photos of the studio, did you notice?
No, in the video footage that we have of him painting,
Wala, baka nakatago.
no, baka nakatago na because the syringe is placed there at the bottom of the...
Iba yung when you're shooting,
Yes.
it's
It's staged.
Malinis,
It's staged.
Yeah.
It's nothing like going, pati yung floor niya white eh.
Yeah.
Painted all white. And then yung very fix yung mga rulers, yung mga niya.
All of the tools.
And then that smell of turpentine. Iba yung smell of turpentine. Pasok mo.
Kasi mahirap na ngayon. That's a
Ganun din yung
health hazard.
amoy ni yung studio
Kaya
ni Lee
Aguinaldo.
dati.
So
Amoy
macaron din
pintura.
ba? Macaron, ano yung brand?
Macaron.
Macaron, di ba?
Macaron, yeah.
The brand of
The
the
brand
easel.
of the easel, yeah. It was an art store in Madrid where you buy everything. Then they have a branch in the school,
Okay.
yung
In
Macaron.
San Fernando,
Oo.
Bellas Artes.
Bellas Artes. Yun.
Yung kay Lee Aguinaldo ba, mana yun from Zóbel?
Yeah, binili ni Zóbel yun. Yung ginaganon.
Oo.
Ganon.
Okay, so the one that we included in the exhibit.
Yeah,
here,
yun. Macaron yun.
it came
I'm
from
sure
Zóbel.
merong mark yun.
Oo, macaron nga
Yeah.
siya.
It's actually Macaron, but they
Macaron.
pronounce
Akala
it
ko
Macaron.
Spanish. Macaron.
Yeah.
Parang macaron.
The same way as you say, can I buy Colgate? Colgate. Iba yung Kastila sa Madrid, iba yung Kastila sa Mexico, iba yung Kastila natin. When you say you have una llamada teléfono, they would say, ¿Tiene usted una conferencia de teléfono? Or you say, ¿Dónde está mi cuarto? Di ba cuarto yung tu habitación. So it's different. It's like King's English and American English. In London, they call it the tube or yung underground, di ba? Or could I bum a fag? Yossi. Cost you a quid. Diba yung pound? They call it quid. And Fernando had a New England accent. So he would say, you won't see this very often. Or I can't say that. Greetings. He talked like he was parang si, who's that conductor? Boston, yeah. Hindi. Another one. Leonard Bernstein. When he talks, he has this Harvard accent. I don't see that very often.
Do you
I mean,
have,
often.
do you have
No,
recordings,
often.
video recordings, or audio recordings of
Of
Fernando?
him talking? Wala kayo?
Well, we don't have one,
But
but
in Cuenca they do.
I think that they
Fundisyon.
do have of him. They have a copy of the recording of, but it's in Spanish.
Mm.
The,
Of him talking? Wala kayo?
well, we don't have one,
But
but
in Cuenca they do.
I think that they
Fundisyon.
do have of him. They have a copy of the recording of, but it's in Spanish.
Mm.
The recording of
Ah.
his lecture also broadcast on TVE for when he was describing Las Hilanderas.
Okay.
Some of his lectures on the yeah,
Mm-mm.
everything's in Spanish.
But what's interesting was he donated the museum and the collection to the foundation. This was in 1980, no? So 4 years before he passed away. Would you know why? What was the reason that
Because he always thought that there's life
after?
beyond
Oh.
collections. I guess alam niya yung talent.
And he had a stroke in 1980.
Yes.
He had a stroke in
Okay.
1980.
So that was quite good.
And I think he even had, when I was studying 1010, I think he even had one in 1960 when Professor Bailey from Yale University visited the Philippines. So merong interview, merong transcription that Professor Bailey was describing that you were supposed to have lunch or breakfast, I think most likely lunch. And then when Professor Bailey came down, Mr. Zóbel said, "I'm not feeling well. Call my driver." So, but I think it's not documented.
What I want to do is to go over his lectures on contemporary. Meron siyang syllabus. Yeah, if we can do that, parang recreate it. Kasi maganda yung kanyang how he introduces. He says about I remember yung I want you to teach yourself. I'm not going to teach you how to appreciate. I want you to teach yourself. Ganun ang kanyang Tsaka yung when he was talking about the Kimon Nicolaides, the natural way of drawing. It was talagang yung groundbreaking. It was a modern approach. Parang if you go there and listen to him, yung for sure you know about art na. Kasi it was so concise, yung the way he talks about it. That's why maybe we should have a workshop wherein we follow the syllabus. Kasi andun na eh. All you have to do is to have the person to read it and then use that and then maybe record it. Kasi that was the beginning of art appreciation. And I'm sure it would be a great subject for fine art school. Oh. Kasi instantly you would, when I look at it, this is a whole course in fine arts. Kasi right away you would see the flow. That's how he started with knowing about painting. Kasi he never went to fine art school. But when he did that, there's no need. It's a whole course. Do you know that in Harvard they have a course in Fernando Zóbel? Si Felipe Peredo is the one teaching that in Harvard. A course in Fernando Zóbel. No. A subject, Fernando Zóbel art or something. Kasi knowing him is like attending a fine art school in what? In so many sessions. And that was what all this, our elite society started with. Okay. Here is an interior. Ano ba yung former nito? Ito?
The bottom one.
Yan. A Rightful Place for Things, Philippine. This was in 1967. Huh? And that's a Zóbel. And that's my Santo print. Yun. Ayan, yan. And this is by Willie Fernandez. This was yung what a Philippine interior modern looks like at that time. So we had there a Zóbel painting and a woodcut of mine. Ayan.
Yung woodcut mismo.
Yung matrix.
Yung matrix.
Or is that paper?
Okay, it's a paper.
Ito,
Yung paper.
it's a yung print. Yeah, woodcut. Oh.
Hindi siya yung matrix.
Hindi. It looks like the wood block kasi it's printed on plywood paper. So it would look like it's the block itself. Yung images na yan, galing yan doon sa libro ni Zóbel na Religious Images. When I saw it and I said, I'll make a woodcut out of this, binigay ko sa kanya. Sabi niya, that looks familiar. Ha? Meron. So, this guy, Willie Fernandez, ano yan, mataba yan. Asawa ni Doreen. So, sabi niya, eto, yung typical Barcelona chair, Bertoya chair. Di ba? Ito. Katapos yung mga textile. So, it kind of parang, it's a statement na this is the interior. Ito, this is how a Filipino interior should look like, you know. It should have a Zóbel and a print. 1967. Yan.
Because if the grad school was in Patron, Ermita, lapit-lapit.
Oh.
So that would might explain.
Pero I think because he continued teaching until 1960-61. Dito na yung iba. But it started.
Tsaka, he lectured on Japanese and Chinese art. Can you imagine that? Yung parang, it's a
Global.
it's a Zóbel na, di ba? That's why yung kanyang is so symbolic yung signature niya, di ba? The Enzo. Si Enzo is Enrique Zóbel.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes.
But check it out sa Google. You find out na the Zen symbol of eternity is the Enso. Or Ouroboros, di ba? The snake eating its tail.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
I guess that's
thank you,
it.
thank you, Pandy. I'm glad that we recorded this.
Yeah,
It's
I hope that
valuable.
you got something out of it.
A lot. Some need to be edited out.
I had a book here. Sabi gano'n, to give and not to count the cost. And I wrote something about Zóbel here being my idol. And I wrote it in Tagalog because I know there is no other essay written in Tagalog about
Zóbel.
Fernando. Nandito.
May kopya ba tayo nito sa library? Wala yan. Hihingi ako sa whoever well, of course, it's an Ateneo. I think 150 yan ito di ba?
Yeah.
It's for the 150th anniversary. And then this one, this is the Zóbel show in Ayala.
2014.
And what's nice about this is that yung kwento ni sino yung nakamana ng artwork? Si Georgina has an article here, and it says that when Fernando was being buried, in the clouds, lumabas yung Enso. Kanya. Di ba, no? In cloud formation. Huh?
Did you get to visit his grave?
Hindi, I never had the chance anymore. Ayaw ba na?
Sila kinare na Hindi.
Coincidence.
Ha?
Hindi, of course.
Coincidence. No.
No?
No,
It's
that's...
him.
Sinadya nila.
Don Fernando is here with us. We are channeling his energy.
Okay, so thank you, Pandy. Let's have a
It's my way of giving gratitude or expressing gratitude to Fernando and Ateneo at the same time. I think it's something that I have to give thanks to these two institutions, Fernando, Don Fernando, and Ateneo. Thank you.
Parang hindi nag-slay. Okay. So,
And then,
original
kilala ba
text.
niyo yung architect ng
1, 2, 3. One more. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2. Thank you.
May konting snacks sa labas.